the making of the Confounding contest. The background. The idea came to mind when brainstorming into what I wanted to create for my final year project. I considered what medium to create the animation in, along with what genre and audience I would most likely want to reach. At the time, I was into my runs and decided to create something that would match my hobbies, so I decided on a racing competition like in the Olympics. From here, I also got some inspiration from the game Fall Guys, which I was playing at the time. I love the simplicity and effectiveness of the character design, and I wanted to simulate the same sort of feeling within my characters, so I kept that as a consideration also. Finally, I built up the idea with conflict within the animation like seen in the show Looney Tunes. I felt like I could portray that well with my animation methods and techniques. Creating a mood board allowed me to gather my thoughts in one place and enable me to visualize my plan. Planning. I started to plan ahead and created a pipeline and schedule for my production. This would enable me to understand what needed to be created and when I would need it for in order to stay on track before the end of the year. With this created, it allowed me to be a lot more productive as I was wasting less time now knowing what needed to be done, and I could focus on the task at hand instead of wondering if I was missing anything. From here, I created a formatted script that portrayed my ideas on paper and in a professional format. With this, it allowed me to get an idea of the length of my project. Initial designs. My initial designs were all hand-drawn, either on paper or digitally on Photoshop, and consisted of character thumbnails, turnarounds, first version of my storyboard, and style frames, plus many more early prototypes. I explored my scene ideas with floor plans and elevations to understand what the characters would be acting in and how big the different assets would be. Coloured designs. Starting out with upgrading my style frame to get a better idea of the colour scheme I was aiming for helped with the other designs also. It allowed me to focus on the weather within my animation along with the terrain inside or outside the arena. Completing colourways and environment concept art allowed my ideas to come to life and allowed me to portray what my plans were. 3D advancement. I moved over to the software I was using, Autodesk Maya, and started to create pre-visualizations of what I had planned out in the initial visuals. I created and rigged my first version of the character and did some animation tests to see how they looked and moved. Moving over to the scene creation, I now created the arena in correlation to what the elevations and floor plan had stated. I brought through some simple props such as mountains and trees to fill up the scene more and make the environment less dead. Creating the first animatic helped a huge amount as it allowed for timings and positions to be refined a lot more. The animatic gave me a great idea to how the audience would perceive the characters, and at the moment they looked quite scary, so I went back to refine them. Creating another version allowed me to familiarise myself with the skills and create a much more appealing design. Testing colours and using different transforms, I was able to differentiate the characters and bring in the designs I had mapped out earlier. Refining. Going back to some prior work, I decided to refine it. I improved my storyboard and got some assistance with a pose and expression sheet along with another style frame. With these, it allowed for my work to become more professional. Moving on, I had been given feedback about my character designs, so I went back into the software to do some tweaking and fix up my designs in accordance to what I was guided. I wanted to get an idea of what my animation would look like when rendered, so I decided to create my Scene 1 and Scene 3 to get an idea of what everything looks like so far, excluding the sound. These allowed for me to gather production stills and to enhance the visual examples into my idea. Implementing changes. I advertised my project to the second year animation students and received some interest for help towards the project. I gathered a small group and created roles for them such as animation helper, prop builder, title designer, and editor. The help I had now got allowed my project to get more of a unique feel to it rather than everything just being my work. I had now got a wide range of other styles joining up together nicely. With new props at my disposal, I spent my time implementing them onto an updated environment scene where the animation would be held. Experimenting with the new and old props helped a lot as there was a lot more design to add to the scenes, filling up the empty space that was there from the previs. Animating. Starting the animation, I followed my storyboard as closely as possible and segregated the different scenes which were found within. Bringing everything together that had been created over this past year was very satisfying. Bringing in the animation sections that were done by the second years, I merged it with the scenes I had laid out. All that was left was to fill in the gaps and the other character acting moments within it. When everything was done and checked, I moved over to the rendering of the sequence. This was the longest and most drawn out section as it had to go through over 1,000 separate images to get a good quality picture. Finally, bringing all the images together using Premiere, I was able to join them all up so they ran through as a video clip. Editing and sound. Editing the animation together was done by one of the second years. They were handed the video sections of the overall animation and connected them up so they all fitted nicely. I have been working with a sound student throughout production and had got a soundtrack and effects for the animation. These again had to be edited into the overall production. Finally, with the animation completed, I could create a teaser trailer. This was made up from different sections of the final piece and had title cards which were made by a second year that matched the branding guidelines of the project. Releasing and advertising. I created some merchandise for my project which had different early visuals on a range of items of clothing or household appliances, such as mugs, towels, and cushions. These allowed for a build-up of suspense until the full release date of my animation. I also created an audience-facing website which contained some behind-the-scenes information about the project. Along with this, I released a project Instagram to show off the stages of production I was at. Along the way, I also created posters to advertise around, showing the animation from a different light and to build up the audience's suspense again. The end.